All right, it's 12 o'clock here, so I want to thank everyone for joining us for this Zoom hall. One thing we are doing new today, I have enabled closed captioning so that we have a service that will do auto closed captioning. So if you would like closed captioning, you can click the closed captioning feature from the Zoom tab, and we'll see how that goes today. But to start the meeting out, I'll introduce President Cheryl Roberts.
Thank you, Randy, so much. And welcome, everyone. It's so great to see so many of you joining us this afternoon as we begin to bring a close to summer quarter and continue preparing for fall. Today, we had a little bit of a nod this morning to what we can anticipate the early fall to be. There was a little bit of a cool whisper underneath those warm tones of the day. There continues to be a craving for community. And so I am so pleased that you've all joined us. I'm also very grateful for your resilience, for your grace and your innovative thinking to teach, to care, to serve, organize, and to prepare our students in the special way that all of our community has come to depend on, the Shoreline Way. At last meeting, we heard a request, or many requests, to be able to share live. And so we did provide that option to people in the communication that was sent out. There was no one who took that option, but we did try to create the same experience that we would have on campus. So we'll continue to do that going forward. We have 5 topic areas, and Randy, if you can move the PowerPoint forward, thank you. So I'll be doing a quick COVID-19 update where we are and where we're looking toward going in the fall. Some brief things about accreditation. Yes, it's coming, and yes, it will be happening in November. And just some external factors that have been impacting our budget and the enrollment as well. Some budget updates to keep everyone apprised of where we are and the trajectory of our work for the early fall. And then we want to leave as much time as possible for questions and answers and what's ahead. Next slide, please, Randy. So in the communication that I did share, we are going to be mostly remote for the fall. All of our operations will be remote. There will be some hands-on teaching done on campus as it has been done in the late part of spring and summer. So if you have a request to come to campus, please know it needs to be pre-approved by a team member. You need to complete the campus attestation access form, and everyone now is required to wear a mask inside particularly, and of course physical distancing. So just to be mindful of that. Some folks have been asking, what are we going to be doing as we come into fall? We begin to start thinking about our winter registration. And so as we look toward winter, unless things improve dramatically, we most likely will be the same. Operations remote with some hands-on learning on campus, but mostly online learning. Next slide, please. Thank you, Randy. Philip King is going to be talking a little bit about accreditation.
Hello, everybody. Good to have you all on Zoom today, and appreciate everybody's time and attention. Go to the next slide. I'm giving this update for Dr. Maring. We're working closely together. She couldn't be with us today. For our accreditation timeline, if you all remember, we're currently undertaking our self-study. Dr. Maring has been working tirelessly at that with many members of the college to both give feedback about the production report and review it. And so right now, during this period of time, July and August, we're in the second draft of the completion of that self-study. We've had about over 50 people who have contributed. And then as portions are complete, Dr. Maring sends them out to areas for review, both for those that have either been involved peripherally because they've given feedback, or directly to those units that might have oversight. So those drafts are out, we're reviewing, and that those drafts will come together, and then the completed report gets done and turned in and sent off to the accreditation team. We still have training ongoing. If any of you have participated, again, Dr. Maring produced a number of videos about the standards and what's contained within each, all of course done with her unique style and humor, which I appreciate her. I hope that she can hear that after we're done here. I don't think she's out of town today. In September, look for additional communication, especially as it relates to opening week, about what you can do to prepare, what you might expect to have happen when they do come for the visit. And then finally in November, this will be a virtual visit, as many accrediting bodies, that's how they are currently participating. So it might look a little different and feel a little different, but we will have a better sense of a timeline and the kinds of activities they will undertake, the persons or teams they want to talk to. And usually it's a multi-day period. So I think you see there 3 days, November 2nd through the 4th. It's usually 2.5 days. We'll update you more as we learn more. And then if you have additional questions, please contact Dr. Marin.
Thank you. So next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit about those external factors affecting the college related to the loss in state revenue associated with COVID and some of the things around our own enrollment. So next slide, please, Randy. I've only highlighted 2 areas that have changed since the last time we got together in June. We're now looking at an anticipated state shortfall of $8 to $9 billion, and you're just going to see that expressed. And then we actually did get our budget from the allocated dollars from the state in June, and so you're going to see that when Don comes on to speak this shortly. But so now we've kind of looked at what the permanent loss will be in terms of what that 15%, plus some other scenarios, and that's we think could be as high as 7 million, but we also have a range. So those were just the 2 changes in those external factors. Next slide. Thank you. So one of the things we thought might happen this summer was the legislature would come and do some adjusting of the 1921 budget, and they are not anticipated to come back until their 21-23 session, which starts in January. So everything kind of stays as it is. As you know, things are political, our budget is, and so we're hoping that things stay at that 15% reduction. That's what we're planning for, as you are going to see in the next couple of slides. But those things can change once the legislature comes in session, anticipated in January. Some good news, we did receive a very large share of the governor's emergency education relief, called GEAR, $1.3 million. We're still waiting to better understand how those dollars are to be expensed, but we did get our portion of that from the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges is $1.3 million, and we're pleased that that will help us defray some of our one-time costs related to, of course, the COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. It's my great pleasure to introduce again Don Beck, who's actually the same. This is your first time presenting to all of us as a campus. Welcome, Vice President Beck.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zoom meeting. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about recent happenings in the finance department and some of the budget gap solutions that we have already taken and some budget projections going forward. Next slide, please. So we are finally done with our audits. The finance department is delighted to have those all done. We got no adjustments and just a few comments. So it was a really good audit result. And the accounting and budget teams put a lot of work into it, and they did a great job. It's so nice to have those done. And then we do have one more audit coming up. It's called an accountability audit, which isn't so much focused on financial statements and dollars, but it's focused on compliance with laws and regulations. So that will be a really good exercise to have them go through and make sure that we're up to date on everything. I think we are. And so we're kind of looking forward to having them come in-house and working with them on that. And it will cover a 4-year period. Next slide. So we're going to segue into the budget and the budget gap that Cheryl alluded to. There are some actions that we've already taken to help alleviate the shortfall that we're going to have in revenue from the state and tuition. So far, we've taken employee reductions in the late spring and early summer of $631,000. We had voluntary reductions where people opted to work a fewer days or take some time off of $160,000. We had a 3% COLA pause for admin and exempt employees of $133,000. And since we're having fewer audits, we've recognized reductions in audit fees, and also we brought some of the reporting, financial reporting in-house for some more savings. We have a travel freeze where we think we'll see about $100,000 in savings, and not having folks on the campus is saving us in water and electricity and various other types of utilities. We estimate that savings over the course of 6 months to a year will be about $350,000. So just through those items that we've already done, we've managed to save almost $1.6 million. Next slide. So here is the draft scenarios. The coloring and spacing is a little bit different, but this is the same format that we've been looking at for a few months now. The first column is the original projection from 2021, where we were estimating we would come in positive to budget by about $2 million. And then COVID hit and the state realized a large loss and reduced allocations. The current signaling from the state is that the allocation will be reduced by 15%, but they're not going to reconvene, as Cheryl said, until January. So we're going to have to take all of our solutions towards the second half of the year for this year. The good news is we got the 2021 first allocation, and it actually went up by $2 million. So that helps to soften some of the losses. But we are anticipating if a 20% reduction in tuition, and it could be as much as 25%. We don't know yet. We're watching the enrollment numbers very closely. And what that's going to give us is a projected loss of between $6 and $7 million. And this is a 3-year budget. So we're going to expect to see that amount of loss over the next 3 years. So what we're doing is budget planning to try and fill that gap. Some of the money that we're getting, the CARES funds and the GEAR money, is one-time money that we receive this year only. So we're working diligently to project the 3 years forward and come up with a balanced budget. Next slide. So here is our actual cash position as of August 8th. We're at about $24 million. Remember that $1 million is in reserve for the turnaround that the City of Shoreline is requiring us to build. Next slide. So there's our $24 million cash in bank, and the shoreline mitigation, of which we have $1 million in a separate account, but we think it's going to cost $2 million. And then we have our board reserves. So the cash after restrictions and reserves is $12 million. Next slide.
All right, thank you so much. Next slide, Randy. So I wanted to bring a sort of bit of a context because the next couple slides are going to be the process. So as Dawn mentioned, we have identified to date about almost $1.6 million in reductions to help to mitigate the loss of state permanent revenue allocation to us, and of course the enrollment losses. Right now we're sort of hovering between 15 and 20% reductions for the fall. And so that's one of the things we have to bring into the mix is what will our enrollment be? We know about 15% is what's been signaled so far from the Office of Financial Management, from the Governor's Office. And so that's kind of where we are. Just to provide the larger context, last year, before COVID and before the loss in permanent state funding because of the loss of revenue from the state, we had already reduced 2.2 million. And so those dollars really went to kind of set us up to be budget neutral for this coming year. So what we're looking at now is $6 to $7 million additionally, based on the loss of revenue associated with COVID at the state level. Next slide, please. And Philip, this is your slide.
Hello again, everybody. Excuse me. So a review of kind of where we are to date. It does say July 1, although remember from point 1 there, ET reviews combined proposals and develops budget scenarios using budget efficiencies, reductions, and revenue enhancements. Those phrases, those 3 phrases, come from our survey proposal or surveys that we pushed out to the college and we received during the later part of the spring quarter. And we've already conveyed that information to you. So the surveys were completed, the numbers that were completed, turned in, we aggregated them and presented some of that overall information to you. We continue to look at those during this period of time over the summer, July through today. We'll continue again to point 2, to look at the data, other surveys, seek input. Cheryl and I, as well as Veronica, have met with the unions a couple of times. We've asked for additional feedback. We're monitoring at the state. So we're taking in continuous feedback about both the number that might need to be reduced and potentially any other reductions with ideas that come forward. And then forecasting forward, on October 8th, we'll have our first campus budget update during the fall quarter. And then we can share any changes that will have occurred between now and that period of time, any new updates that we have, and or both in terms of revenue as well as forecast, and then also in terms of any potential reductions. And then finally, on point 4, we'll be presenting our 2021 budget during the October 28th Board of Trustees meeting. Next slide. Again, this is just a slightly more or slightly finer detail on how ET is doing some of its budget planning. Again, same period of time. We're looking at budget principles that we've utilized over the last year. Those are available on the budget website that we've maintained over the course of this current year. The bullet points here, and someone had asked a question in the previous forum, best practice and organizational efficiencies. We just draw from the body of knowledge we have both in administration across the state. So we look across the state at how are other colleges organized and how are they grouping things together. But also, so there is literature that is available on organizationally how you design yourself, especially as a community college or university system. And secondly, in that bullet, you know, we're thoughtful in any of the changes that we're potentially looking at, that they are equity minded. We're thoughtful both from a perspective of the staff that we employ and the students that we employ that come to us, as well as how we interact with their community. So as we look at any potential reductions, that lens is with us through our planning and through our thinking. Again, on the second point, we'll use the spring 2020 full budget survey, here where you see, again, as a reminder, we had 175 respondents, 359 total comments. As you all know too, as we finished the spring, we conveyed all of that data to you. So initially we were giving you high-level proposals, and then we made the entire output of the survey available, yet some where there's, so for us with full transparency, and we do have some sections anonymized simply because names were used and or a position was used, and so it was easy to identify. So we did aggregate some, but otherwise everything is presented to you. And in the late summer, early fall, we are going to ask for your feedback again. So we're going to have some of the proposals that have already come forward that were mentioned in late spring, and those may include, as you look at the next slide, some options that we have. Those will come forward, and we're going to ask for your feedback again. If you have thoughts about them, and it'll be done in a similar manner as the last survey was. with very simple, a simple output, simple response, the option to respond multiple times, and a limited opening. And we'll probably keep it open, but we'll send out a date for that so that it is available during a period of time in which all persons on campus are available to, and are working. And then last, again, remember, we're trying to align our cost and scale with known revenue. As you've heard our new VP, Dawn Beck, give us some feedback about where we are with revenue forecasting. We're trying to align our costs with that revenue coming in. And it, again, is based on a loss of permanent state funding. That's what they're signaling to us. Next slide.
All right. Well, now we've come to our time for questions and answers. And Randy, you can help facilitate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One question that came up during our last meeting was around the use of the question and answer feature and putting questions in anonymously. So I wanted to give you some information on that just briefly here while we prepare for this section of the meeting. Depending on the device that you're using, you'll get a pop-up window when you hit the Q&A button. It's going to come up and ask you for your question. As you can see, when you go into the type box here in the middle question, it's going to come up and give you the option to send anonymously. If you check that tab or the little button there in the feature, that's going to let you send that anonymously to us. What we see on our end is anonymous, and then the test or the question that would come in. So there may have been a little confusion because you don't see that option to send anonymously when that window pops up, but it is there once you go into the text box. And if you have any questions or you're not getting that, please let me know. Contact me at media@shoreline.edu, and I'll make sure you've got the right version of Zoom and are available to use that option if you so wish. So thank you for that. We do have a couple questions already coming in. Go ahead and submit those to us, and we'll work through them here over the next 40 minutes or so that we have. Okay, the first question asks, how many people will need to be cut to reach the budget cut goal, and how many administrators will be taking voluntary pay cuts to reduce the number of necessary layoffs?
So let me start with that question, and maybe others might want to chime in from executive team. So it's a little bit complex because one of the things that we have, we did reach out to both our union leaders to see if they would be open to discussing taking equivalent reductions as the admin exempted for the pause for the COLA. And so we're still hopeful that we will be able to talk through a proposal, because that would be $1 million right there in savings. If we could get equivalent savings, that would equal the COLA that everyone received except for admin exempt. So that in itself, that's one sort of piece of the pie, and that's another million. So we would be at 2.5 million, almost over 40% there, without making an additional loss in, we could preserve more positions. So that's one piece, and we will continue to talk about other things that can help us, but they need to be negotiated. Then the other question is how many administrators will be taking voluntary pay cuts. So right now there is a pause on the COLA for our admin exempt, and you saw that slide. So that's where we are at, currently.
All right, thank you. Yeah, there was another question that also came in about the voluntary pay cut. So we've answered that as part of the first question as well. The next question coming in says, President Roberts said the college has now received confirmation of its fiscal year 2020-2021 state allocation. From whom did the college receive the state allocation, and which documents indicate the state allocation so that those can be shared?
Sure. So we get an allocation from the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. They send it out to all the community colleges. So we just go down to our line, and it tells us all of the allocation that we receive. And Dawn has that document. Whoops, let's see, hold on, let me get back to that next question. Make sure I answered it. And that is available. So we can make that that available. And I'm wondering, I'm looking maybe to Philip, maybe that could be put on the budget website.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We had a question about how many people are viewing, and I guess the Zoom webinar feature doesn't show you how many attendees are watching. Currently, we have over 170 attendees, so I thank everyone for their interest and participation today. It's wonderful to have this many people together. The next question. The college has said that the traffic mitigation project may cost $1 million, more than $1 million, and it has held that in reserve for the project. Additionally, the college said that it is anticipating $1 million in lost revenue due to the residence hall occupancy decline. How does the college plan to cover these expenses?
So we, the loss in occupancy associated with COVID is covered under the CARES Act money that we have. And so we're looking to dip into that pool because that's a allowable deduction that we can take. So that's how we're planning on taking the loss in enrollment so far for next year. Dawn, did you want to say anything else?
There is a little bit of insurance money that's available to us for the first year only to offset a small portion of the loss. Again, this is a one-year loss. We're talking about patching a hole for the first year when as long as COVID lasts and international education and enrollments are down, it will affect our housing. So we're trying to approach housing as a 3-year problem. We're finding solutions for the first year. There's going to be 2 more years of possibly declined enrollment that we will be working on.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. The next question asks, what does it mean in terms of layoffs that the legislature is waiting until January to deal with the budget crisis? Does this postpone layoffs for us?
So because that 15% also is looked at in terms of the entire budget. So what happened is we looked at what is our allocation from the state in terms of the system of community colleges. And so we just took that 15%. That's what the governor suggested that he was looking at. But when we get into the legislature, there's other priorities. There's early learning, there's K through 12, there's the justice system, there's the social service system. So there's a lot of pressures, and there's cities and communities pressure. So people are going to be lobbying for their cut not to be as dramatic. And so that's where it becomes political, and that number could go up or go down. So we are looking at, we know it is at least 15%. It could be more. One of the good pieces is we've gotten a lion's share of the gear money that we mentioned. And so that's positive for us. Again, it's one-time money. The state allocation is more of an ongoing permanent, at least for 2 years, funding. And so they could say, well, you got money for the gear, so the community and technical college system might get less in terms of what happens with the allocation for 21-23. And remember, we're still in the 19-21 biannual budget year. So they could remove some of those dollars for the remainder of this year, as well as thinking ahead for the next 2. So that's where John was saying this could be a 3-year problem. So that's why it's we're not going to we cannot postpone, because we will follow our collective bargaining agreements, and there's a time of discussion. So we will be presenting what we believe will be a balanced budget based on what we know in October, and begin to look at those kinds of reductions we need to make. We don't want to make more than we need to, but we need to have a plan to make those reductions. So we're going to start that at the end of October. Next question.
Okay, the next question talked about what does permanent mean in relationship to the legislative level budgets, and I think that was covered partially in the last answer. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to clarify or add to that.
Yeah, I think, so as opposed to, we did get some allocations for, let's say, the nurse educator. That was an allocation for a 2-year period. We get some other, we got allocations for the pathways dollars. What we look at in terms of permanent or ongoing money that we can count on for operating, and that's what we're talking about. They're taking back 15% of what we consider ongoing operating funds, and that's why we have to begin to position the college to be able to work to operate with 15% less revenue ongoing. And as you know, over 65%, almost 66% of all of our funds come from the state itself to operate the college.
Thank you. That's good additional information and clarification on that. The next question asks, what efforts are being made to attract students who are taking a gap year or who are postponing beginning a 4-year school?
Oh, Martha just popped up. And I actually have something else to share when Martha gets done, so.
Sure. So that's a great question. We are definitely working fast and furiously to try to capture more attention from that audience. There's an opportunity there that we don't want to miss. So we are doing lots of different things. There's a lot of outreach with the high schools that are happening right now in terms of students and families, counselors, trying to reach PTAs, anybody we can at the high school level, as well as recent graduates. There's a lot that we are doing in terms of email marketing, so email campaigns going to different lists, advertising, paid advertising opportunities, and then social media. We're really trying to capitalize the use of our social media content, doing potentially a short form video that's just about that. So we do have a lot of different things in the works and launching now that are really trying to address that audience.
So let me just say as well, I think the launching of our new homepage and our Apply Aid updates to our website are going to really help us during this enrollment cycle as well. I had a chance to speak with Superintendent Minor from Shoreline, and there is going to be most likely more Running Start students as they have decided to go mostly remotely. And we had a really robust conversation last evening, and she understands that we do a great job of that. And so there's going to be a lot of support for Running Start students. So you may see a little bit of an uptick because of their decision to go remotely in the district.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Martha, for giving us the information on that question. The next question asks, will required furloughs be looked at for the fall quarter?
So let me just talk about what we decided to do for summer. We did not take any temporary furloughs for the summer. Many colleges around us did do that. We looked at what the disruption to all of you as the primary reason. We did take some temporary furloughs related to budgets that had revenue attached because we weren't offering that service. There was no revenue coming in. But we did ensure that all employees had health benefits during that time. So that was a cost to the college. But we felt that that was appropriate given what's going on and again, the instability related to COVID across so much of our economy in the state and in our small region. Getting to the question about furloughs, right now, we would be looking at conversations with our to union leaders and the leadership, one of the things that we want to look at is what a furlough would mean, because we know that it's a very unstable work environment out there. And so we'll look at how can we we want to preserve as many positions as possible. And so can we make some reductions and then look at what it would be for people to take a furlough, all of us at the college, and can we close the gap with that, and what might that look like? And that's actually one of the things as we do this second survey, we will be sharing, here are the reductions that we're thinking about, and to close the gap, would people be willing, that would mean every employee be willing to have their, to take some furlough days, which is a reduction in pay. And so we want to be able to provide different scenarios so that we can get a feel for the appetite of all of us at the college to do that. And some of our colleges in the region have decided they don't want to do that. They just want to take straight reductions. And so we want, that was one of the things in our toolkit that was shared in the survey. And we definitely want to go back out as we get closer to coming up with some solutions. Again, the idea is to preserve as many positions as possible.
Thank you. The next question asks, in meetings with other community college executive teams, what have you learned?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things I've learned, and maybe other executive team members can speak up. I learned that we're one of the few colleges that did not take any temporary furloughs for the majority of their employees this summer. I learned that there were many community colleges that had no process. They just had it just done. There was no survey. There's no input from the larger college. They just got together as an executive team and made decisions. I think we have a lot more in our toolkit because of the rich information that was shared from all of you as we begin to put together scenarios. Now that we have sort of honed the number as close as we can without the legislature coming in and being in session. With that said, we have enough signaling from the governor. We know what the revenue shortfall is at this point. And so I think we've got enough to be able to move forward. So those are the things that I've learned, and that we continue to have these sort of meetings where some colleges are not doing as many.
Very well.
Excuse me, before we go on, is there other, from the executive team, other things that you've heard that we've learned, that we've applied?
I don't know if, this is Philip, if you can see me. Not much more. I mean, I think that we often in our state meetings with my peers talk similarly to what Dr. Roberts just conveyed. Some information about, as it relates to the budget process, who has one, not, where it's embedded, how the decisions were made, the timeline for the decisions, who was involved, very similar to what Dr. Roberts discussed. And then we very quickly all then moved to talking about COVID and opening in the fall and who was planning for it and not. Those are more predominant in my conversations about COVID planning, and if we're planning for remote or in-person operations and how we're navigating that. That's predominance of mine.
Randy.
All right, thank you, Philip. Any other comments? Okay, next question. What do you foresee the future of the Child Care Center and the Child Care Center staff, as we don't have an acting director who will be advocating for the PCC? Who is picking up the messages for families who are looking for child care? EDCC Family Child Care is open and running.
So let me start this, and maybe Dawn, you can pick it up. Child care, the PCC now is in your area of responsibility. We have started thinking about what it would look like to open for the fall. So we're working on those plans. And there's several things to consider: the safety of our staff, of the children who would be in the PCC, and what are the regulations in order for us to do that. To remind everyone, we do have almost 250 people on campus. So our custodial staff are working very diligently to keep all of those folks safe and sanitizing and cleaning and sanitizing those areas. And so we want to make sure that adding on the child care center, we're able to do that. We do have co-directors right now that's working out very well. And maybe Dawn, you can talk a little bit more about that. And let me just say, yes, the Edmonds Community College, their child care center is open. But one of the things is that we also have more students coming on campus to put pressure to ensure that we're cleaning the campus and making sure that our employees are safe as well. PCC has its own level of cleanliness that's required pre-COVID. And so we just want to make sure that we're doing that. Plus we have a dental clinic open and some other very labor-intensive facilities on our campus. So we have to weigh all that in and making sure that we keep everyone safe. Dawn, do you want to share more? You're in contact with the two co-chairs, co-directors.
Yeah, sure. The child care center is so incredibly important to Shoreline. It is such a beautiful space, and it is such an amazing place to be able to offer child care to students, staff, and the community. It's just something we're really proud of. And so what we're trying to do is find as much research as we can to determine what the child care center looks like over the next year. And as you know, a lot of things with COVID and finances are still kind of moving targets. So what we're looking at is there are new regulations around child care that limit the number of kids that we can have in a room. And it also increases the number of staff that we need to have to take care of those kids. Fewer kids per staff, more cleaning needed, more check-in procedures needed. So we're comparing that with what the child cares in the area are charging, because unfortunately what that means is a price increase. And we don't want to price ourselves out of the market or create a hardship for the people who use the center. So we're looking at that, and we're also taking into consideration the stability for the families. We need to make sure that if and when we open, it can be for the long term. To have a COVID outbreak happen in a child care center it might go into the news and would just be a hard thing for the child care center to recover from in the future. And also we would have to then close it down and quarantine folks, and that would create a lot of instability for the people who have their kids there. They would have to then scramble and try and find childcare. So we're really looking for a long-term stable solution and evaluating all of the information before we make any decisions. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Been asked to remind the participants today that closed captioning is available, and it's can be turned on and off on your tab. You'll see the closed captioning option on the menu bar, so you can turn that off if you need closed captions for today's meeting. Next question. How did you arrive at the international student tuition projection numbers in scenarios 16 and 17 as shown in today's budget slides? To contextualize this question, as of today, we are down only 19% in FTE terms, 507 FTEs as of 626 on this day last year. Your revenue figures indicate that last year we will be down from 5.66 million to 2.83 million, or 2.52 million. That's a 50% or greater reduction. How much greater than current numbers? Much greater than current numbers are indicating. Do you need to revisit these numbers showing a more rosy outlook?
Should I go ahead and speak to that?
Sure.
Okay. So there's a lot of instability right now in the international education and enrollment, and a lot of it comes from the administration. So what we did is we dialed back our enrollment projections for international education a lot when the administration took away all of the visas and sent ICE in and kind of devastated our students. And so we did dial it back quite a bit, and there's still restrictions on new students. I think as we get a little bit more clear picture of enrollment, we can start possibly bringing that number back up again. But we did go very conservative on that number since it's such an environment, an uncertain environment. Cheryl, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you've handled it nicely. Randy, I see that there's a question that was missed by Shelby.
Oh, okay. Yes. Shelby Slate put in this question. I request that the college discontinue its practice of keeping staff, students, and faculty and administrators from seeing and hearing one another during these campus updates. In the spirit of this request, I ask to be able to see who is in attendance at the meeting, hear people ask their own questions, and see their reactions should they choose to share their video during the meeting. It has been noted that no one took advantage of the ability to ask live questions by signing up to do so in advance of the meeting. I assert that it is impossible to draft meaningful questions before one has had the chance to review new, review new information. To that end, I also request that the college provide a recording of this presentation at least 3 business days in advance of the meeting so that students, faculty, staff, and administrators can prepare their questions. I also ask that the college then use the campus meeting to field questions and comments from staff, students, faculty, and administrators.
Thank you. That's I appreciate that, and we'll consider the request.
The next question asks, as a follow-up regarding the occupancy decline, the college has reported having maybe $500,000 in CARES Act funding remaining, and the projected occupancy revenue loss is twice that. Will the college be using all of the remaining CARES Act funding to cover the residency hall loss? And even if it does, how will the college pay for the remaining estimated $500,000 lost in occupancy revenue?
So let me approach this question, and maybe Don, you can share as well. So we did get the 1.3 GARE money. We do know that some of the things that are being talked about to be used for the CARE money could be shifted to that, and that would allow us to use more of the CARES dollars. We do know that it is an appropriate use of CARES to deal with any revenue loss associated with COVID. So Dawn, do you want to, and she also shared about the insurance policy, which we'll be utilizing the money there as well.
And to add on to that, the budget is a process, and we don't yet have this exact dollar is going to be applied to this exact loss. That's what we're working on developing. We have a pretty good idea what the total budget gap is, and we have the pieces of revenue that are available to us and the possible budget solutions that are available to us. But to make kind of a one-to-one, are we using this pot of money to solve this problem? I don't think we can be that specific yet. They're all pieces of the puzzle that will get us to a balanced budget.
Thank you, Dawn. The next question asks, do you anticipate potentially closing campus and having all employees furloughed for a certain number of days?
That's a really good question, as all the questions are. Right now, as I mentioned, we're going to be putting together a survey to talk about what's best. We also want to make sure we're serving our students. as well. And since we're mostly remote, there could be sort of rolling days and there's so many options in that. We've seen this happen at the state level where people will, the office will be open, but there'll be reduced days and things like that. So yes, that could be one of the things that we talk about as a result of trying to get ourselves balanced because of the associated impacts of COVID. So that's something that was part of the survey that we saw, and some of the things we would most likely be surveying the whole college to say how would we like to deal with the different scenarios of getting to a balanced budget.
Thank you. The next question says, please note publicly that 50% of the occupants of student housing were domestic students, not international. Too many people blame this loss on international student declines.
Thank you for that. About 53% are international and about 47% are right now, currently, are domestic students. So we felt really prideful of that. That sort of remained the same even when we've had the reduction. So we've had a nice blend of both international and domestic students. So thank you for making that point.
Yes, thank you. The next question asks, would E-Team, as the most significant salary body in the college, consider taking pay reductions?
Well, I can say right now, all executive team members as part of admin have taken the 3%. And so as we look at going forward, what some of the other associated scenarios are, but that's where we are currently.
Okay, the next question asks, how much would furloughs save if we went down that route?
All furloughs. So it kind of just depends on the percentage and the number of days. So that's where those scenarios that we're going to be presenting are going to come to bear, because the impact, every family, every person has a different impact. We don't know people's personal lives, how their salaries is being used. And so we want to make sure that we're doing it with those lenses on. At the same time, those different scenarios based on what we can, again, we're trying to preserve as many jobs as possible, knowing that we can't get to the number without some job loss, but we want to be very thoughtful about that in programs as well.
Thank you. The next submission is a comment saying that the new website looks great. So kudos to Martha and the team in communications and marketing on the new website. The next question asks, how is the 20 to 25% decrease in students estimated? Is the online environment less appealing to students versus on-site classes?
Well, let me start with that, and maybe Philip and Martha, you can chime in. Yes, I would say that nationally people are holding back on coming back to school. They're thinking that it might be better in winter. There are students who are taking a gap year. There's something special about being at college. We have a trend on our campus toward more hybrid, students taking more hybrid courses, not wanting to come every day to campus, or only come for a shortened number of days on campus. But there is something unique about the college experience. And so that the decrease is about that. And we're starting to see the trend. The trend right now is between 15 and 20%, with a little bit higher. It kind of vacillates between that number, and it seems to be the same both for international, which we get more revenue for an international student, as you know, than we do for a domestic student. So that's how we came to that. Even though I have to say our online environment, we've got a lot of praise. Faculty have done a great job. Our online learning department has done a great job. The support we've given, tutoring, all the things that have come along, all the things that we're doing is making people feel like they're having the Shoreline experience, not just a ubiquitous online experience, they really feel like they're part of Shoreline, and it's because of all of you. And I'm really grateful. Philip, or is anything else?
Yeah, I would comment similarly. I think that I think I've asked this before, I'm not sure. There's an enrollment report that comes out daily that we all get, and anyone can get access to it, but we all look at it in ET at least every day. And to Cheryl's comment, it's quite volatile. And even perhaps as a relationship, one of the questions asked earlier about international, and you can see some of the spikes. So probably the end of July, the international enrollment was trending at 25 to 26% decline. And then now it's just a little under 19, 20. But every day it changes and it spikes. So last Saturday, we were about 500 less FTE. This morning, we were about, I think, 440. At some point, we dropped to 410 and popped back up to 5. So we've not seen such range of volatility day to day. Usually there's like a steady line. That is descriptive of student behavior in terms of what they're doing. They making more randomized decisions that we cannot predict. And, the only other comment I would make, and it does relate to the question asked earlier about what are our peers saying. Our peers were doing what we're doing. A lot of us were all trying to determine who would go online fully, who would declare who was going online fully, who would maybe be the last to do so because they could capture a market. And to that end, that's what we believe predominantly is going on with students in general. Even as they're evaluating their university options, they're trying to identify what their universities are doing and if they may or may not then go there to come to us instead. So we're constantly monitoring. We have meetings and updates almost every day, meetings at least once or twice a week about enrollment and planning around enrollment. And frankly, I'm sorry, but I know that International could chime in if they were here. Samira and I would tell you, reacting to what any new federal statement gets made, of which we all have to respond so quickly to ensure we support our students. That's a lot of what we've been doing. I don't know if Martha would add anything.
Sorry, took me a second to get back on. I would just add that, I think in terms of overall trends, there are a lot of students who are just hesitating right now. I think we are going to continue to see things being a little bit behind where we would normally be this time of year. People are just kind of delaying making a lot of those decisions. Some of that's for cost, some of that might have to do with the format and the modality of the learning. We are also making some more changes to our remote campus webpage to try to provide more information in one place for students so they can get a better idea of what is fall going to look like, and how we can kind of reassure them that there are lots of positive things about coming to Shoreline and doing online learning with us in the fall. And then the last thing I was going to say is just that, I think as hard as it is for us right now, we're actually in a better position than a lot of the four-year schools. Community colleges are still really an appealing choice for a lot of students. And so the more we can get that message out there in many different ways to remind people that we, offer really flexible, accommodating learning opportunities for people. And, you don't have to commit for a long time. You can just come for a quarter or two or a year and then go on to something else. So we offer something that's a little bit different than the 4 years. So I think that's a plus for us. But I do think that we're just going to see a lot of people delaying making their decisions about fall as long as they can.
All right, thank you. I see that we have come to the end of our hour. And we still have many other questions that we can address via the recording and via the answers that are provided at a later date, where we will review all of the questions that have come in. And also at this time, we'll look ahead to see our next events that are coming up, and I'll let President Roberts go over the upcoming events over the next couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's hard to believe, but we're just less than about 5 weeks away from fall convocation, which will be on Friday, September 18th. It's going to be shortened just to 2 hours. We're going to keep our tradition strong. Welcome everyone to talk about employee awards and do it in a way that will engage us and get us kicked off well for the year. We're also going to have some opening week familiar pieces that have been a tradition for us. I do have to say I do miss our nature walk that we do and some of the other things that bring us all together, our luncheon with all the students and all those sort of things in the main plaza area. But we are going to maintain many of the traditions that we've come to really appreciate, and that's going to be September 17th through the 22nd. Fall starts on the 23rd of September. We'll have our first Zoom hall meeting around the budget, and with some of the things that you've asked, that some of the requests, and if you've got other requests of how we can make this more interactive. I do want Randy to mention a couple of things about the technology and seeing and things like that was asked, because I think that's going to be important in terms of our limitation and what we can do. And then the last thing is, of course, our board meeting on the 28th. That will be also most likely Zoom. So with that, Randy, could you talk a little bit about what we can do in this format in terms of people seeing each other? No, we can't see anyone. Only people we can see are on our panel. We do know that there was at one point about 180 people, 170 people on, but can you talk a little bit about the technology and what we can potentially do to make it more interactive?
Yes, so Zoom creates what they call a webinar room, and it's in a response to some of the security issues that they've had with Zoom bombers, and it provides a very secure forum for these types of meetings, but it also is very limiting. And I don't think we have a lot of flexibility in adjusting who can be seen and who can see the attendees and other informations throughout that. I will do some research on that to see if some of those settings can be tweaked to make it a more sessions, make it a more session so you can see who's here with us and be a part of that. We do have a way to allow you to ask questions live and come in that way. But I think it would be good to do a little more research on this and see what our options are to make this more of a meeting where we can come together and can have that conversation, so you feel that we are together in this. And I definitely recognize that, and I'll do some work here throughout the rest of the summer to see what options are available to us to make these meetings, secure. We don't want anyone coming in, but we also want to meet the needs of the community as best we can.
Thank you, Randy. I just wanted to have you chime in there because I know you have a sense of how the technology works, and we want to make sure that we're utilizing it in ways that make it as interactive as possible. Want to thank everyone for your questions. As always, we will answer them, the ones that we didn't get to, and hope everyone continues to stay safe as we bring summer to a close and look forward to the fall, and look forward to seeing everybody for fall convocation. So with that, have a good afternoon, and fins up, all in.